Welcome back to Mediums in Action with me, Martin Lake Wilson, and my good friend and super expert medium, Ian Doherty.
Hello, Martin. It's nice to hear from you, mate. I hope you had a nice, calm week, and hello to everybody who's listening.
Yeah, I've had not a bad week at all. Just kind of reconnecting, really. Just that. Do you know? I suppose it's like post-traumatic stress disorder in that, but nothing compared to what the experiences people have. But do you know, after you feel a bit stressed and a bit damaged, and you need to take some time out for yourself. I felt like that this week, and I feel a bit more rewarded. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, no, very much the same. I'm putting myself first. You know, obviously, being in this line of work, it isn't a money-making ploy. You know, so you've got to balance your funds. You know, and at times I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be doing phone readings, whatever, for 10 or 15 hours a day. So I want to get that balance in my mind and, you know, sort of think I'm putting myself first more. Like when you're doing some phone readings, you're privy and you're trusted with somebody else's life for however long that call is. And sometimes it's being deep, you know, so I have to go away and sort of thinking, well, I'm bloody lucky, you know, and sitting down and not having to be in that situation, you know, all of the time because of all the trouble and the turmoil that's been caused by COVID, and in certain points it still is. The spirituality in the work that we do, you know, mediums, doing your podcasts and stuff, we still, you know, it hasn't stopped for us. You know, it's still been the same, but it's got a lot heavier. And I think that at times, you know, in a negative point, people want the answers. They want you to fix their life there and then, and that weighs heavy on one's soul, I think. So it's been more of sort of, not in a selfish way of putting myself first, but making sure that my mental health, my emotional health, and as you said, being nurtured, talking, communicating, spirit side.
I think also as well as Ian is a part of giving readings is just being there for the people who phone you so they can communicate the issues that they've got in their life, because, you know, everybody says it's good to talk, and it's incredibly good to, you know, a problem shared is you know, it really helps. So there's that aspect to it, and obviously then there's the reading that comes with it, and I know certain mediums, quite a few mediums who have suffered kind of burnout, really, where what was happening is they weren't doing too many readings, but what they were doing was actually taking on board what people were talking about and then carrying on the emotional effects of that reading as well. I think they had increased stress because of that, because they took on board what the people were experiencing and couldn't shake it off. It's a bit like actors. You know, some actors get so much involved in a particular role that the stressful situation that they're in can often affect people's personal lives because they don't drop the role, you know, and that's I think people like Heath Ledger, who played Joker, after he played Joker, he couldn't drop the role. He was permanently buzzing, and sadly, I think he turned to taking tablets, painkillers and things like that. So it's a strange thing. And as you say, anybody who deals in counselling or communicating with the public, I think you do really need to look after your personal side and be able to walk away from that and do something completely different.
Definitely.
I think that's where maybe your painting comes in, your art. And
I was thinking about that. Yeah, definitely. Although it's, you know, it's definitely working spirit side, but it's so it's hard to put into terms. It's like I'm so calm, I'm there, I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm just going with the flow, you know, and it just seems as if it's painting by sense, you know what I mean? So I just know something needs to be there, something needs to be here, and it takes your mind off it.
What sorts of messages are coming through at the moment? Because I kind of see your artwork as a little bit of a litmus test of what's happening in the greater consciousness.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I often feel, you know, sometimes we've talked about this, how as a medium you can often be buffered by the consciousness. And what we mean by that is sometimes you might feel down on a particular day and not realise why. And then you discover actually quite a few people are feeling quite down at the moment. And often I've seen in your paintings, I've seen that there's often correlation, I felt, in with the general consciousness feeling of how it is.
Oh,
so I kind of, it's I say it's a little bit like a litmus paper in that I can see what's kind of happening. So that's why I like your artwork.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's as you would imagine there's a lot of romance and there's a lot of people wanting to make sure that their work is there, and but the one thing that is, without sort of coming over negative or down, the one thing that comes through with most of the readings, from Spirit, that as we go through and hopefully come out of this COVID, depending on the Indian variant, then it is very much everything's just going to go bang, it's going to go boom. It's there's a real thirst. People are thinking, well, I've had to sit on my bottom for 1.5 years, I've had to do this, I'm not willing to put up with it, and they're out there doing things, they're grabbing life, so there's a massive upturn, I do feel.
I think what's happening with people is that they are now, it's giving them that zest for life. Yes. Where before we've never had something so shake up the world like this, obviously apart from the world wars and things like that.
Yeah.
But this has been a real big shake up, certainly for the Western world, and I'm hoping that there's a steer towards the less sort of divisive world. I really do not like social media and that how dividing it's making everybody. We all have different opinions and we've all got different ideas about the world. But what social media is doing is allowing the magnification of certain beliefs that really shouldn't be allowed to bloom. What we should be doing is, we should be trying to connect with each other, and we should try to be working with each other for a better future, rather than that person against this person, this organization against that. I think that there is middle ground, and I think it was Matthew McConaughey, I saw him the other day saying, people keep asking me, am I left, am I right, am I this, am I that? And he said, you know what, I'm in the middle. He said, I'm walking down the middle of the road at the moment, it's empty. Everybody's defining themselves either through politics or belief, and nobody's in the middle. And it takes bravery to stand in the middle and look at the whole bigger picture and try to have a stronger road where, you accept everybody's faults, but also as well is that we try to work together as humanity,
Yeah, that's very, very powerful,
Yeah, I liked it because, it's one of those things. I think we're in a changing world, and sadly, through various reasons over this last 10 years, certainly since the financial crisis, there's been a hell of a lot of uncertainty and disruption and, and violence as well.
Yeah.
And in all nations, not just the UK or America, but, it's all around the world, and things have got to change. But I've often seen that in your. I mean, I remember a picture from 2-3 years ago that you did, and it was, at the time, I thought it was showing sort of a modern day, sort of modern feel, but showing aspects of the older walls and things coming down, and I think that was talking about change. To me, I looked at it, and your interpretation might have been very different, but I looked at it and I thought I can almost see the walls of the old coming down and a new brighter future, and I still hope that comes through.
Definitely, it's an interesting take on my artwork, that, Martin. It's nice, that, so thank you for sharing that.
Well, I sometimes, I've got your cards here as well, and I kind of go through several times and I'll meditate on them and I'll see what messages come through, and often I'll get another message. I'll get a message from my guide come through and kind of give an interpretation, because I think certainly with cards, whether tarot or whatever, we've both said, if you get a tarot cards, just throw the booklet in the way, which most tarot purists would be absolutely furious about. But I like your cards because I could take what you've written about it and give myself a reading about it, or give myself an insight, but also as well as I can use the interpretation as well with the guidance that you give in the booklet as well. So yeah, I think they're great. Let's do a little plug in. Have you got a few left that people can buy from you?
Yes, I have. And bearing in mind of the situation, the COVID, they've actually done very, very well, and I'm pumping my own trumpet here, sorry folks and folkesses. They've gone as far away as Canada, Australia, the USA. They're all over the UK. They're in Belgium, Southern Ireland, so they are there. I do have some packs left. And if you want to get in touch with me via Facebook, Aura-ARTZ is my handle on Facebook, and you can order them direct from me. They're not available in shops. Okay, folks.
Yeah, I'll put a link on the podcast description as well. So if you want to look at Ian's cards or order from him, you will not be disappointed. They are a fantastic. They're quite large as well, which is great because the level of detail and depth to them really comes out of the cards as well.
Thank you, Martin.
It's really good. So Ian, I don't know if you've ever seen a man with long hair. He's got his eyes closed and he's giving a reading to somebody. He sits there and he claims that he's walking down a massive library. He finds a book. He puts that book on the table and he starts scanning through the pages and he starts reading from them. And he claims that he's in a mystical realm called the Akashic Records. And from these Akashic Records, the book that he's looking will tell him what's gone in the past, what's happening now, and what will happen in the future. So have you ever had experiences with either people who claim to be reading from the Akashic Records or the actual Akashic Records themselves?
Very interesting question, Martin. I have some basic knowledge of the Akashic Records, and I've seen one or two people claim, purport that they are doing it, and I am open-minded, but seeing said people do it has left me a little bit sort of, what the hell is going on? Eyes closed, imagining turning the leaves of a book, and then suddenly, oh look, a pair of red shoes, and that sort of thing. And I thought, what is going on here? You know what I mean? So I did want to do a little bit of research, questions posed or stuff like this, because I had cause a little while ago to think, well, what is it? Because I have a very diverse amount of friends, and some of them are Hindu, and they sometimes talk about it. They link it with karma, and they talk about how we can therefore put things right if we've done something wrong, and it's in our records and that. And I just found it of what you call it interest, stemming back for thousands of years. It's mentioned in the Bible, the Book of Life. And I was a little bit naive, I dare say. I thought it was coming over towards ancient Egypt, and where the sort of cradle of civilization around that area. And like I say, it is Hindu based, I think, in the the books, the Upanishads, I think. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, people who were listening who were Hindu, but it's very much of, to be honest, when you look at Madame Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky, I think it's another way of twisting ancient Eastern theology into a Western civilization. So I feel a lot of it, and where the problem is, it's all mixed up, isn't it, Martin? What's your point of view in this?
There's two parts to this. The use of the Akashic Records, or the belief that you're using the Akashic Records, which I'll talk about in a minute with you. And then there's the historical perspective. No doubt the Akashic Records, it didn't really exist until Blavatsky. A book in which there is a life, your life is in there, or your death, that goes back a long time. There's many sort of claims in, as you say, in the Bible, or the Book of Life, the Book of Death, the Tibetan Book of Dead.
Yeah.
There's all these sorts of things where allegedly there's a book with your life in there, and you can access it. So that is I would say, a sort of a religious, semi-folkloric belief that has expanded over time. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's come from somewhere that, is centered into, as you say, into Christianity, into some of the what the Western society says Hindu beliefs. And then what has obviously happened is, obviously there was a huge explosion in the occult, or into Indian techniques of meditation, chakras, as people call them. I always say chakra, and chakra is what I call modern day belief of what people think what people think chakras are. Yeah. The actual word is chakra. So my feeling is, and certainly what I kind of know is, and I think we kind of said this, is it wouldn't surprise me if Blavatsky was involved, and lo and behold, she was, and I think even she invented the word as well, Akasha. She actually invented the word, and she believed it was. I think she imagined Akasha to be a bit like Moses' tablets, that these were tablets that were held in heaven or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, she didn't call them Akashic, but she called them Akasha, the Akasha, and these were tablets that were held in some area. But Blavatsky wasn't alone. She had a society of theosophists. I can never say that.
I can never say theosophy.
Yeah. And instrumental in that are several authors who all wrote on the same themes. And as we've talked about before, like with chakras, is that they influence their writing by the Christianity that they were born into.
Yes, definitely.
And that's same with Blavatsky. That's same with Henry Steele Alcott, C.W. Ledbetter, who was around at that time. And C.W. Ledbetter, obviously, you probably know him from writing Clairvoyance.
Yeah, spiritualism, yeah.
Yeah, so, Ledbetter was heavily involved in there. And all of them took ideas from Blavatsky, what she was talking about. Well, how does that fit within the Hindu religion, which they heavily borrowed on and heavily wrote about? So they wrote about Buddhist belief. They wrote about esoteric Buddhism. They also wrote about, you've also got people talking about, Arthur Avalon wrote one of the first books on chakras and Kundalini.
Yeah.
And they tied it together, essentially. They tried to tie all of this together. And people have done that before. People have tried to tie chakras into the tree of life of the Jewish tradition. But these are two very different traditions. And you can't mix chakras with the tree of life and kind of imagine that would work. So it's a real big mishmash. But it was actually very, very influential, because obviously Blavatsky's society was international, and it took off because there was definitely a black hole at that time in the belief system pre-World War One, and people started dabbling in the occult, the paranormal. It's the birth of Ghost Club. It's the birth of SPR. William was, kind of starting off, 1880, was it? 1885 or something like that?
It'd be after 1881,
That was it, exactly. So this is the time, in fact, in 1881 was two. In fact, 1881 and 1882 are two of the biggest books that mention Akashic. Yeah. And actually they said Buddha was apparently linked to the Akasha, the Nirvana, and that was 1881 and 1883. So I have no doubt that actually William was aware of those as well. It was a real black hole time, and it was filled with this Eastern knowledge that was heavily Christianized. But like chakras, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because what happened was, because India was essentially taken over by the British, and India became a British member of the British Empire, what happened was the beliefs went back. So they came from India, they were Christianized, they were added with Blavatsky's influence, and then these texts went back. Yeah. So the problem is from sort of 1910 onwards, and especially after the independence, I think, was in 1946, but don't quote me on that. But then what we have is a situation where there are some parts in India where people are talking about the original aspects of the Yoga Sutras, the ones that are unchristianized. Yeah. And then there are also people who also talk about the Yoga Sutras that have been Christianized and are linked to the history of Atlantis and all that sort of thing. So it doesn't make sense to me from a historical perspective. That's my point.
But I think it's ancient beliefs, Mahatmas, where I think it comes down as great souls, or theosophy meaning divine wisdom and that. But I do feel here it started whereby, because even spiritualism now has on some of its courses, the required reading is Madame Blavatsky. So even in looking at that past coming into the modern times, they still want to look at her influence on mediumship, spiritualism, spirit. I don't think it was with Alan Kardec in spiritism, but you're looking at it all, and I just feel here it's been lumped in, molded into what was deemed to be needed at that time. It's a sort of blossoming out of Christianity away from the Christ and that sort of thing. So I do feel here there must have been a need for it to be taken up so much.
Yeah, I think there was a need, and it's interesting that spiritualism only took foothold in the UK through the lower classes, and that wasn't because the lower classes were thick or stupid, as I've actually read in one description of why spiritualism took place. But I think it was because it was closely linked with the unions of the time, believe it or not. And it was, I think, what it was is, you imagine, and I've been doing my ancestry recently, and it's interesting because you have generation after generation after generation, 3-4 generations, all working and living in the same place. The degradation and the suffering of working in the mills or working in steel or coal or anything like that. You imagine that, and then somebody comes along and starts giving you a bigger insight into the world. So this is before we've even talked about the spirit world, but they start giving you a greater insight that in India and in Tibet there are these beliefs that they believed 2,000, 4,000 years ago, that this and that, and that there is a greater life beyond the constraints of what you're living here. And then secondly, the first spirit mediums are they're giving readings from people who are saying, do you know what, things are going to change, give people inspiration. And you look at what happened, how strong. I'm sure there is a social history link between greater power to the unions that came off the back of the rise of spiritualism.
Yeah, definitely, because spiritualism was 1848. It came from Hydesville in December 1847 to March 1848, and it came over here in, I do believe it
was that lady, wasn't it? I forgot what her name was. It wasn't Arlene Barrett, was it? No.
Maria Hayden in 1852.
That was it, and she was in Bradford, if I remember correctly, and Nottingley, I think she went to.
She did a lot. I think she went to London first, and was slated by the press, and then the first spiritualist church in Keighley in West Yorkshire sprung up. And it all came from there. That's why they look at Yorkshire, both the West Yorkshire, Yorkshire in general, east, north, south, west, is the lifeblood of the spiritualist movement within the UK. But that came over there when he was giving people hope, understanding. Oh, there must be a greater life, because it's not just about saying hello, your mum's missing you. It's to be with, it's to do with the philosophy, the ethos. We should be helping each other, because you're looking at it very sort of influenced with some of the teachings of being cooperative, helping each other. You help me, you help you, and that sort of thing. So I feel that could have been a union's influence, certainly.
Maybe as well, it kind of influenced parents as well. Yeah. To seek out education for their children as education became more and more compulsory. There was definitely a real big change, and it's interesting that change happened, sort of 20 years, 25 years before the First World War, and then obviously there was a huge increase in spiritualism. I think mainly in London. I think that's when London really took up the spiritual. Definitely. When major figures lost their adult children in First World War, that's when mediumship really took off there. And it's interesting that the First World War, on the back of First World War, Germany, that's when they really got into the occult. There had been a number of occult groups in Germany pre 1910, but post 1910 to the Second World War. And that's why Adolf Hitler was heavily influenced in the occult. Yeah, definitely. Especially the, the kind of Germanic people, and he kind of used that. But also as well is that, the swastika is actually, a Hindu sign of good luck. He put that on his flags. So we know that there was big cultural changes at that time that came from spiritualism, Blavatsky. The influence of Indian texts as well, more and more, as Britain invaded India and forcibly took it over. Yes. There was Indian texts coming over, religious texts coming over to Britain, and there was a greater knowledge of we started practicing yoga, although I do have a magazine, I think it's Prediction magazine from 1910 or something, and it says that it's black magic. Yoga, it's potentially dangerous for females to do yoga because it's black magic. which is interesting.
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing yoga with Adrian, who's a very famous YouTuber, Adrienne, female yoga tutor? Can you imagine accusing her of black magic now because she's teaching yoga? So there was all this influx, and I think there was a hole to be filled from a spiritual perspective, and that's where the first seeds of this Akashic Records belief came into. And I wouldn't say it's massively popular now, but there are still people, and it's interesting. I did a bit of research to see who offers Akashic Records. I found somebody who we mutually know, who I won't name.
Yeah.
And then I also found somebody in America who does black magic chakra readings and Akashic readings. I don't know what that means. I mean, to me, let's talk about this. So if they're not accessing Akashic Records, what are they actually accessing? Because I would say that the person we are both talking about, we both commentated that he might not be the most accurate person, but he does get hits, and he does, he does give readings to people.
Mm-hmm.
If he's still getting that information, what's happening then? What is he actually accessing if he's not accessing the Akashic Records?
Yeah, I think it's like a global consciousness, because when you think about it, it's we are, whilst we're in the physical body, and our spirit, our soul, if you wish, is housed, within this earthly body. It becomes muted as into what it can or can't do. It's got to fit into it's got to coalesce into something that's not its first sort of natural medium, pardon the pun. So I do feel here it's still that sort of access where we can sort of tap into information, whether you call it universal energy, universal consciousness, because there's a lot of information given through readings. That is, how did you know that? Oh yes. Not only so-and-so's going to call at this time, or you've got that, or tell about a person, something's going to happen, bring in mother, grandmother, whatever through, and being very evidential. So that has got to be the spirit world overlaid, impinging onto ours. So the information's got to come there. I think it's the belief when in the physical body that I must be reading Akashic Records, rather than thinking, where is it coming from? If I talk to my guides, could it be, well, actually, what it comes from is this. You're able to access this. Is it to do with your own, the knowledge of your own spirit? Is it to do with your frequency, all your vibration? I don't like using that, but it fits in this way. Are we able to use a certain amount depending on the development, the evolution, would be a better word, the evolution of our own soul, and what we can or cannot access? Maybe our previous lives, if you believe in reincarnation, lets us have access to more information. Maybe it's that way. But I feel the physical life, we'd like to put labels on things. So, I'm getting it from the Akashic Records because it makes me sound better.
I kind of think certainly that there are mediums who try to create niches for themselves.
Yes.
To try and stand out. So, we've had the people's medium, we've had the gangster medium, we've had, kind of world's youngest medium and all this sort of stuff. So there are these niches, and I think Akashic Records is quite an easy niche for people to choose.
It is.
I think my feelings is, as you say, if they've been taught that this is how you access this information from either spirit or the global consciousness, they've been taught a visualization exercise. So they have been told, imagine a library, imagine you walking down, imagine a book that stands out to you. Pick that book. What color is that book? How does it feel? Is it light? Is it heavy? And then suddenly you are then into no different from picking a tarot card, because you pick a book. Is it heavy? Oh, this is somebody who's quite old. This is somebody who's got a long life expectancy. Is it red? Is it gold? Is it black? Is it, you start your readings beginning there and then. You put the book onto the table, you open it up, and you can whiz through and you begin to see certain things. To me, you're right in what you say about this could be just a visualization exercise that eases the pathway in which we can access. It's essentially, it's easing the way how we can access the global consciousness. I would also argue that what could be happening is that this person is essentially talking to spirit, but doesn't realize.
Yes, yeah, very, very much so. And it's their need to clothe it in a label, a title, so they can give, they can have or seek direction. Oh, this is how I work.
I totally agree, and I think it's one of those things that either they've been taught that way and they are stuck that way. But I think if the people we know who do Akashic Records, if they actually thought, okay, I'm going to try and communicate with my guide, and then I'm going to ask them to bring through information, and I'm trying to bring through spirit, they might actually have far more accurate readings. And secondly, they might actually be able to give some descriptions of the person who's actually giving the message, because that's what it's very impersonal, Akashic Records. And what I'm thinking is this might also be, as we've talked about in the past, is that you, Ian, are very analytical. You come from a job that you had to use your analytical mind, and therefore, when you are doing your mediumship, you're very much on the details. It's all about the detail for you, and that's because that's how you're built. That's your your mental pathway. Yeah. Now, could it be that some people who do the Akashic Records, the reason why they like the Akashic Records is because it removes any personability, that there's no connection with the person. It's very impersonal, I think, Akashic Records, because essentially you're visualizing yourself reading a book, saying whatever you see and whatever you feel, without a connection with spirit or a connection with the reader.
It's taken the responsibility that a medium has ethically to be as honest as they can, to bring through that evidence in the best way that they can. And your mediumship, is clouded by your own personality, as you just evidenced with me. Maybe it's a distance thing, it's the book. If somebody says, oh no, that's wrong, well, it's what's in the book, so therefore I'm not taking personal responsibility. That is, take it or don't.
Essentially, I think, I don't want to say Akashic Records is rubbish or anything like that. There is a grounding in belief that there is a record, a book, whether it looks like a physical book on a library and you can open it up and you can say, oh, there's a pair of red shoes here or whatever, or that I can see a living room with curtains in it. I don't think that is the case. To me, it's a visualization exercise in which you are connecting with consciousness, but that consciousness might not be just like a global consciousness that sits there that we can access like a hall of records, but what it might actually be, it might actually be spirit, and there is a missing out. You're only seeing the communication, you're not seeing the bigger picture, I don't think.
No, that's it. I'd share some words, if I may, Martin. I had to sit down when I was waiting for delivery to come. Not pizza, though. Okay, folks.
Sadly.
Yeah, and my guys just said something very, 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 very quickly here, because Akashic Records, again, through the Hindu and Buddhism belief, is reincarnation karma, and it was, the way it was put to me is the soul a repository of all its lives? For if we accept reincarnation as fact, then all lives lived by the same spirit have their imprint within the fabric of its being. Can it therefore be accessed through an extremely deep meditative mind? All the deeds that have been done could therefore have an impact upon said lives. Having the opportunity presented to right what we deem to be wrong, karma, is time linear in our world? Yes. However, when taken on the concept that it is a ball, a circle 360 degrees in every direction, maybe time itself is a figment of our own earthly manifestation.
Excellent. That's really good. You'll have to write that up for us, Ian, and we'll have to put it on the Facebook page. It's really good. And did that come from William as well?
Yes.
I think we'll leave it with William's discussion. I'll just say, we are not poo-pooing anybody's belief in Akashic Records or anything, but what we are saying is if you're thinking of going into Akashic Records, just have a look at the bigger picture. Have a look at whether it's like mediums who, kind of still get the pendulum out. Or it's like, why are you doing that? You can know
it's very much, is the Akashic Records a crutch for some person who is very much not willing to go out that extra bit of a limb and connect more fully with spirit, or how they deem, are they using that as, like, as a sort of, like I say, something to sort of lean on, basically.
Yeah, totally agree. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. And if you've got questions, we are always looking for subjects to talk about. And to be honest, myself and Ian, we'll have a chat and we'll say, oh, we don't really have much to talk about next week. And then by the time we finish chatting, we've planned out 12 months. So, so if you've got any questions, please let us know. We did one on a student's experiences a couple of weeks ago, and that was very well received. We're glad a lot of people got a lot from that particular episode. But if you want us to discuss particular areas of mediumship, clairvoyance, or psychic ability, please let us know. Again, I think personally, Ian, we should be chatting about the medium who I saw this morning, who is married to the ghost of Michael Jackson.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, she's married to the ghost of Michael Jackson. She plays Minecraft and trucking simulator with an astral projection from Johnny Depp. And she also runs an OnlyFans site as well. So a fascinating person, I think.
I'm a bit sort of wanted to run away from that, I think. But
I know. Can you imagine if we did do a podcast on that? I think any credibility would go out the way.
It would, wouldn't it? It'd be similar to doing the Unicorn King and Queen.
It would be, yeah. And just one last thing before we go. I'll tie this up, but I just want to thank everybody, whether you downloaded just one episode or whether you've downloaded all of our episodes. Thank you ever so much. We reached 100,000 downloads this week. It's taken us since the beginning of November 2017. Yep, we've been going that long. And I think we've got 52 episodes now. I just want to thank everybody, and I'm sure Ian does as well. But I
definitely thank you.
I just want to thank everybody, whether you downloaded 1, 2, 3, or whatever, or you clicked like, or you helped us along the way. And for all the special people who've purchased our courses or bought us coffees, our donation system, it all helps. And above all, what really does help is all the lovely kind words of support.
Oh, definitely.
The reviews, everything that you've all done for us. We really appreciate it. We didn't do it for the download numbers. We did it just purely as it was one of those things where we said, well, let's do a podcast and let's have a chat about mediumship, because there was literally nobody doing anything about it, and we just wanted to get together every week and have a good chat about mediumship.
Yeah, and it's helped seeing through the jargon, because some of the feedback is, oh, thank you for helping me help me understanding more. Thank you for this. Thank you, give me an insight into things, and that is what Martin and I want. We want people to be helped. It's not changing people's minds, it's helping them understand that there is mediumship, there is life after physical death, there is a lot of things to this world, and it's very much cutting through the rubbish. I was going to swear there. Cutting through the rubbish that is all brought up, all the jargon, the self-belief, look at me, I'm better, and seeing it for what it is.
Absolutely. And the important thing for us is that people are getting something from this podcast. It's not about profile. It's not about our ego or confidence or anything like that. It's about really that people are learning. And even if they're questioning what we're saying, that's a positive as well, because we want you not to take things onto face value, but what we want you to do is to challenge things and to grow as mediums that are open-minded. And that's the big key thing for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Ian, you have a good week, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon, and we'll have another podcast episode coming along soon. If you've got questions, please drop us an email or message us through Facebook, and there'll be another Mediums in Action very soon.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Bye bye. Thank you, Martin.